Okay. All right, so we're ready to get started. As I mentioned, I'm Julie Chavana with Yoga Tree Consulting and Yoga Trainers Tribe. So if you're on the Yoga Tree Consulting page, I always recommend checking out Yoga Trainers Tribe, which is the private group for, at this point, anybody who wants to get in on the conversation. So focus towards, of course, yoga teachers, yoga trainers looking to build or maybe improve their yoga teacher training by getting some tips and get in on the conversation with other trainers who are looking to do the same. So let's see. So the topic today is going to be on sequencing methods. Continuation of some tools for yoga teacher training. As I introduced last week, was my tool for guided journaling during yoga teacher training. It's something that seems very simple, and it is, but I get a lot of really good feedback from my trainees on guided journaling, being given time to journal in training. And I take that opportunity to really guide them in their topics. So we aren't just journaling about whatever comes to mind. I give them topics that are related to what we're talking about that weekend or that month in training. And so what I've recently done is published a journal for trainers that has 100 topics that you can pull from and use in your training for guided journaling. I also created a student journal, and both of these are available on Amazon. You can find the links to those things in the shopping section of Yoga Tree Consulting. I posted them last week on the videos, and I'll continue to share those so that you have access to those and can check them out. There's some supporting courses to go with those journals, and the same thing will be true of the sequencing methodology materials that I am going to be releasing this week as well. There'll be some journals, some guided books for trainers to use, some a workbook really for you to give to your trainees, and then a supporting course for trainers to use to really train themselves on how to use the materials and train on a sequencing methodology. So I'm going to get back to that. I really feel that the subject of sequencing encompasses so much of what you talk about in yoga teacher training, and it really, as a student coming into a yoga class, is something that can really make or break a class, is how that class is sequenced. From a lot of angles, it's like the make or break, right? The one is the physical, right? If you are giving people a logical sequence of postures that helps them get into the deeper stretching and have a very wonderful shavasana, you need a way to get them there that's logical and consistent. And from the teacher's point of view, it can make or break because it creates a flow. A method for creating classes can create a flow for the teacher that frees them up for some other things I'm going to talk about here today. So the idea of a sequencing formula may not sound very exciting, and I get that. We as teachers tend to want to bring in a sense of intuition and flow into our classes. Makes total sense. We also don't want our yoga classes to feel rigid or rehearsed. So I understand those points of view for sure, but just hear me out. As a trainer, coming from a trainer's perspective and someone who is either currently offering a yoga teacher training or thinking about it, preparing yourself to offer yoga teacher training, I just want to give you some reasons why you might reconsider a perspective on having a sequencing methodology to train on. So when a teacher has a consistent, repeatable way to create classes, good sequences become logical. Now, like it or not, our bodies, our muscles, our joints need a way to open, to warm, to deeper movement, broader range of motion, and safer stretch, right? So we need a consistent, logical way for our bodies to do that. Look, most of our students and even we as teachers spend a good portion of our day sitting at desks like I'm doing now, driving in cars, riding in cars, and over the course of the day, hips, hamstring, back, core, arms, shoulders, everything gets a little tight. And we're in winter, so I don't know about you, but I definitely feel it more when it's cold outside. My muscles just need a little bit more time to kind of get into the groove and really move into some deeper movement. Another thing is that we haven't been breathing very deeply for most of the day when we come into yoga class, right? You're just breathing kind of normally. You're not always paying attention to your breath, especially as students. Certainly not taking a lot of opportunity perhaps to breathe deeper. So having a go-to consistent way for us as teachers to address these things in class and to do it to be able to offer that to our students in a consistent way every class time just makes us better teachers. So there's point one for having a sequencing methodology. Your classes become more consistent and logical. Students will find an easier path to self-connection in their practice. If a student knows that a class is always going to open with a warm-up, a breathing, a centering, that you're going to move slowly into some flow-like postures, that you're going to have some ways to sort of warm up the bigger muscles of the body with some standing poses, some warriors, those kinds of things, some sun salutations perhaps, that you're moving into balancing, and then you're moving into the stretching and then the ever lovely Shavasana. It really helps them not have to think so much about the yoga class. These things sort of set off triggers in their mind that this is my yoga class, these are the things I'm going to move to. It makes them also help them be more present when they do get into the practice, the flow of their practice. Present because they're able to better observe what happened yesterday versus today in their bodies. Maybe be more present about yesterday was perhaps a more stressful day at work, and so my practice looked like this. Today was a much easier day, so my practice looks like this. So just that feeling of self-connection, it's really a gift in the form of a tool for them to do life better. And for a lot of us, that's why we started yoga, was to have an outlet for sort of tuning in and doing life better. I believe that they become, in a sense, their own best teacher. And that, as a teacher, is what you want to encourage your students to do. You want them to find that tuning inward. It's probably what has helped you stick with your practice as a teacher, as a trainer. And that's really the gift that you're giving to them as students. The other reason for having a logical way to sequence classes, a method for sequencing classes, is things happen. We as teachers can only be prepared for so much, and you're training new teachers that they can only be prepared for so much. Sometimes life happens and the teacher still has to show up and present a well thought out, a safe class for their students. And so this is how a sequencing methodology can help. Teachers have a life outside the classroom that can be busy, that can be chaotic, and we're all human, right? And so when these things happen, a teacher can feel off, but yet the teacher still has to show up and do their job. And having a way, a method that they can fall back on to create their sequences, they don't have to spend as much time preparing outside of class when things do happen, because they've got this method for pulling together a class in less time. So it helps them be more prepared more often. Every class is going to have a different set of students. You as a trainer, an experienced teacher, already know this. When you teach a methodology, you're passing that idea on to the next set of teachers. And that is, every class will be different. Every student will be practicing at a different level. And it's 100% guaranteed that every student will have a different body, right? And so you're going to be helping your teachers be prepared for that every day, every class, by giving them a framework with which to create their classes, right? So it becomes, again, a tool for your teachers, the teachers you're training. It also, by giving your teachers this tool of a sequencing method, you're giving them a way to be more present in class, to develop their power of observation. When they have a framework, a method for creating classes, they can be more present with who's in class right now. The students who show up, that different set of students who are there for every class time. When they have that framework, they can be more present, they can learn to observe more, and in turn become a much stronger teacher, the teacher that they want to be, right? When I talk about sequencing methodology, sometimes people are like, well, I'm afraid of boring classes, right? I'm afraid that if every class looks very similar, if every class is structured the same way, people are going to get bored. And I bring up two types of yoga that have the same sequence every time. And these styles are booming. They're very attractive classes for a wide range of students. Those two styles, if you haven't guessed already, are Bikram, which has the 26, I don't know if it's even called Bikram anymore, but the same 26 postures in a hot room, practice every single time, and people flock to those classes. It's a method, right? It's a sequence. Ashtanga has been around for decades and decades, and people flock to those classes. They know what to expect. They know they can observe how their practice changes from time to time. And essentially these were based on a sequencing methodology. And so what I train in yoga teacher training, and what I'm suggesting to you, is when you have a sequencing method, it makes your teachers, the teachers that you're going to train, the teachers that perhaps you will hire at your own studio, more consistent, stronger, better observers, more able to work on the fly, so to speak, because they've got a method in which to, a framework in which to form their classes. That's my kind of spiel on having a sequencing methodology. What I have done is I've pulled part of the sequencing methodology that I present in my full yoga teacher training package and created a workbook, a standalone sequencing methodology workbook for trainers to use. That is going to be published on Amazon within the next couple of days, and I'll be posting those. If you're on my email list and get regular email updates from me, you will be getting that as well, that email when those are published. So there's a trainer's workbook on training sequencing. There's also a student guide that you can use in conjunction with that has worksheets, essentially sequencing worksheets for students to use, where they can use the framework and create yoga sequences. You can use those in training, which is what I do. I like to have my trainees leave training with at least 5 sequences that we've created together in class as a basis for them to get started. So they can use this workbook in class, and then also take it with them, of course, and use it after they've left training. So I'm publishing both of those on Amazon within the week. I'm also publishing a trainer's course that you can use as a trainer to learn how to use the sequencing methodology. Again, if you already have my full package of manual and workbook, this is part of that. Any updates I make will be automatically sent to you. If you are someone who's in this group who already has a training but would like maybe some new ideas to add to your sequencing training, this workbook and the student workbook's very reasonably priced and available to you. And if you're someone who's thinking about starting a training, haven't gotten there yet and want to check that out, you can do that as well. Again, very reasonably priced. My goal is to help your training be very successful. And so I want to give you the tools to do that in a very reasonably priced way. Very cognizant about that. So those are coming soon. If you have any questions or comments about what I have presented here today, get over into Yoga Trainers Tribe and join the conversation. The questions will be answered there. And take a look around and see what resources I'm offering. This year, I'm going to be offering some great resources that are easily accessible for you to use in your training or to get your training started. All right, thanks for tuning in today. This is Julie Chavana, Yoga Tree Consulting and Yoga Trainers Tribe. Enjoy your week. Take care.